it's about like PFPs, right? So, you mentioned me back there, like in the backstage, that you also like focus on PFP collections and like in your research division mainly. So what do you think about like PFPs? What do you think about their future?
Thanks for the question. I think it's a great question. Like, I think just to outline a little bit, like PFPs are basically these profile picture collections. The most typical ones are the CryptoPunks, the Bored Ape Yacht clubs. These are typically like 10K collections that actually have seen the greatest, I would say, hype within the NFT space over the last 9 to 12 months or so. I do have quite a lot of thoughts around some of these things. I think firstly is that if you're thinking about new PFP collection that's launching, I think you need to think very carefully because the competition in the PFP space is extremely heavy right now. If you were to launch a project, say like 9 months ago, if you just had an artist create some artworks, you can launch it and you can still get a fairly good amount of traction. But today, it is very difficult. A few reasons. One is that the supply of these kind of projects is very high, and I would say the target audience or potential customers of these projects have not grown as quickly. For example, I think probably we can think of probably only about 200,000 to 300,000 active wallets on a monthly basis right now. So that's the entire target audience of the NFT community at this stage. It will grow over time, but right now it's still relatively small. And I think secondly, we've also seen a lot of very credible projects come in this space. Collections, I say the Moonbirds, the Doodles, that have very strong and legitimate teams. They are doing something that is very interesting in this space. So the question is, if you're launching something, a new product is coming, when I look at it, does this have any competitive advantage, right, against some of these other PFP projects? And when I think about, just very quick, like the mental model that I have in my mind when I think about a new project that is a PFP type collection, I actually go back a lot to think about how do we evaluate social networks. And I draw a lot of inspiration from Eugene Wei, who's a tech writer, who's written a lot about social networks. And I would say there are three main axes that I typically evaluate a community or collection like that. Right? Firstly, it's very around entertainment, like being in this particular community. Is it fun? Do the people in the community enjoy being with one another? Secondly, it's very around social capital. And I think that's something that's what has driven a lot of value into these PFP collections. CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, why are they selling for six-digit figure amounts? It's because as human beings, we are all stateless chasing monkeys. We love social capital. We want to build our social capital. And by owning that particular PFP, does that increase my level of social capital? For example, the CryptoPunks, a lot of people bought into it because many of the crypto OGs, very rich, very influential people, were all having CryptoPunks as their profile pictures, and that's what gave that a huge amount of value. And then the third thing, which I will not harp a lot about, because we've covered it a little, it's very about utility, right? By owning a PFP, what do I get out of it? Do I have any financial benefits? Do I get any financial value out of it? Do I get exclusive access to say, like almost like a membership program? Do I get exclusive access to say in real life events? Do I get limited edition merchandise? I think if you look at a particular PFP project and you think about them in these three axes, I think it gives you a much better sense whether this is likely going to succeed in the long run.
I think it's a great point, and absolutely right to it, with the communities especially and everything around it. It has to be a trade-off, right? When you're putting in that money, you can't just be like, everybody has a chance to win something that's worth less than the mint price was, right? It has to be more value created.
Exactly.
Awesome. I'm going to pop it back over to yourself, Ivor. So we talked about beforehand, pre-mint, right? You're on a white list, you're on an allow list, you're looking at it, everyone into detail as to what you should be looking at. But unfortunately, most of us don't catch things pre-mint, right? We see it on the secondary, we see it when volume's running, we see it when the floor price is flying, and that's when the real FOMO often kicks in. And that's where people get stuck. And it's the same thing in stock market, right? Buying top, a bunch of different pieces. So I'm curious, now I'm looking at a project, right? It's running, it looks interesting, there's a team, there's a utility maybe. What are the different pieces that I really need to be digging into before buying something off the secondary market?
Yes, so I would say, some of the things I mentioned before earlier are definitely important. And if you're like me, you're really into data. I look at all of those things, but then I also look at some other things. 14 years, and eventually was the CEO of a global concierge and travel company. So data has always been really important to me, and I've always been able to have access to good data. And when I started out in NFTs, I was like, well, what's this NFT worth? Or what's it going to be worth in the future? Or where are my comps? Like all these questions I had, and I'm searching, and I'm talking to people in Discord, and there really wasn't a lot of data out there that could answer the questions that I wanted to really see. And that's why I created DropTools, droptools.com with a Z. Sorry, but no, so we have basically a ton of KPIs that I wanted to see. And a couple other co-founders, they added their input and their KPIs that they wanted to see when they're evaluating whether to buy a project. So what we do is we provide metrics and data to help you buy and sell NFTs in a more informed and smart way. So we have a lot. I'll just go through a couple. Obviously, you look at like floor price and things like that, and also to David's point, he's totally right. If you're looking at something to hold and gain value over time versus flipping it right away, you're going to look at different things. And we do a little bit of both. So we've got the KPI, and we also, for every single KPI we have, whether it's floor, whether it's subfloor, whether it's 2x spread, whether it's number of owners, number of listings, historical sales, etc., we want to see that for exactly like the traits that we're looking for. So you can name any NFT, but I'm just going to use one that I have. So looking at a recur pass, for example, you've got majority pink, and you have sequence 2, and you have prismatic. Those are traits or attributes, kind of like an ape that has like a blue background or bunny ears. I want to see the floor, the subfloor, and all those other KPIs for the blended attribute. So I don't want to just see the pink, floor. I don't want to see the project floor. I want to see the pink sequence 2 prismatic floor. And there's no data out there really that has that. So we're basically taking it and putting it in a database and running a bunch of calculations. So those are some of the interesting things that we can see to help value your NFT and help decide whether to buy it. 2x spread is another one that I like. That's basically how many items, and it's displayed in items or dollars, would need to sell for you to double your investment. So, that can be good for flipping or for holding. A few other ones are owners to listings ratio, and some of my other favorites. I mean, they're all good, and I think the key is seeing them all in the same spot. So if you have a dashboard and you see all these KPIs in green, red, yellow, and you can kind of look at the whole picture, that really helps you make a decision a lot easier. And so that's what I created.
That's awesome. David, a comment?
I completely agree with you. It's like all these KPIs are really necessary if you like planning to evaluate like any condition. What like is usually very hard for people is to like understand which of these KPIs is more important than the others, and like if like this number is actually like that, let's say the number of buyers versus listings ratio, is it a really bad sign compared to like other indicator that's like?
Exactly. So we make it really easy, and we put like, arrows, traffic lights in green or red, but yeah, that's totally true. And, over time you kind of get to learn it in your head. But like, I'll just throw it out there, like 2x floor, anything that's like about, I would say 2% is kind of the cutoff that I look for. But also it depends on the size of the collection and a lot of other things. So I usually don't take something in isolation, I kind of look at the whole picture. But we've talked about a lot of different things that we look at now for NFTs and due diligence. A couple times it's been mentioned, the community. So anybody who wants to start an NFT project or anybody who wants to buy an NFT, how do you grow a really good community gap?
It's a great question, and I have some hot takes on community. I've spent the last 16 months building a community of 70,000 on Twitter right now, and I've tried to use some of those things that I've picked up to help different projects that I believe in build out their community. So I need some crowd participation for a second, and then I'll say my hot take. Raise your hand if you're in a Discord. Okay, perfect. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a Twitter space. Now, raise your hand if you've ever voted in a DAO. Okay, I like that we still see some hands up. So here's my hot take on community. 95% of people are followers and they want to be followers. They do not want to be making the end decision at the top. They want to come in and they want to see a good idea and they want to believe in it. What's happening in too many of these projects is it's very open-ended, right? It's, we want to go where the community wants to go, right? We want to adapt them, we want to adjust them. We come in and we have a big idea, maybe we have a bit of a roadmap, but we're very willing to adjust to our members. What I look for is founders that have a vision, and they're going to achieve that vision, and they're looking for a community that wants to align with it, and propel it, and grow it, and those are the communities that I've seen succeed. When you watch what Yuga Labs does, they have a vision. They're up there making moves. They know what they want to do, they know what they want to buy in, and people look at that and go, I want to be a part of that. They don't look at it and say, I want to change that, right? That's not what's happening here. So I think the most powerful of these communities are the ones that come in with a very strong idea, and they then search and look for people to back that around them. They don't try to pander to the most people so they can bring in the most money or have the most eyeballs on them. Instead, they're looking at a clear-cut vision and line driving towards it. So that's one of my ideas on community. I think there's a lot of ways to go about accomplishing that. Once you have the idea, you want to get it out there as much as possible, of course, within reason.